If there is one move that the Denver Broncos could make at this point in the offseason that would send me over the moon and make me truly feel like they exhausted all opportunities to improve their roster, this would be it. And it's an opportunity that kind of is happening out of pure chance and pure luck. So the Pittsburgh Steelers yesterday made a trade to acquire Jalen Ramsey from the Miami Dolphins. But another player came along with Ramsey to the Steelers, and that's former Dolphins tight end Jonnu Smith. Smith had previously worked with Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith both in Tennessee and Atlanta, so he knew the system well. But the main reason why the Steelers wanted to go out and acquire Jonnu Smith was because they felt that he complemented the skill set of their starting tight end Pat Freiermuth rather well. This now leaves another tight end as currently the third tight end on the depth chart for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that is Darnell Washington, the former Georgia tight end, who could be a really intriguing fit here in Denver for the Broncos. Again, this is a move that I'm not sure the Denver Broncos have their eyes on, but I think this is a really intriguing opportunity here because I've talked about it for a long time on this channel, how the Denver Broncos need a true functioning inline tight end, a guy who can put his hand in the dirt and run block. The Broncos don't really have a guy who can do that beyond just a competent level. Adam Troutman is a competent inline wide tight end, but he's not a world beater there, and I think that the Denver Broncos, in order to take their run game to the next level, could use some better run blocking from the tight end position. And that's just not something that Evan Ingram is going to offer you. Let's go ahead and dive into the schematics of this. And there are a couple of terms that I want you guys to learn if you guys don't already know them before we can really discuss these schematics. And that is 11 personnel and 12 personnel. I want to go ahead and bring in an example of a 12 personnel formation. So these numbers here, they represent the number of tight ends and the number of running backs that are in the formation. So the first number represents running back, the second number represents tight end. In 12 personnel, that means that there are 2 tight ends, 1 running back, and there are 2 wide receivers. The main personnel that the NFL likes to operate in, at least since about 2017, is 11 personnel. So 1 tight end, 1 running back, and 3 wide receivers. In order to counter that, what defenses do is they play a lot more nickel defense, having 5 defensive backs on the field in order to account for all of these receivers and in order to account for all these eligible receiving options. Remember, there are 5 eligible receivers on any given play. So, for these defenses, when an offense is in 11 personnel, you bring in an extra corner, you bring in a nickel corner, and it's pretty easy to match up against. It's not as easy defensively to match up against 12 personnel because you're kind of in a conflict here. Do you put in an extra defensive back? Do you play nickel defense against 12 personnel and risk matching up a small defensive back on a bigger pass-catching tight end like an Evan Ingram or a Jimmy Graham in Sean Payton's offenses? That is kind of the risk you're playing if you play nickel defense against 12 personnel. But at the same time, if you want to stay in base defense and just play with your standard 4 defensive backs and have an extra linebacker in there, then you're risking having an athletic tight end matched up against a linebacker who could be slower in coverage. It makes things a lot harder to call defensively, and that's exactly what offensive play callers want to do. I say all of this because NFL teams are starting to transition back into 12 personnel. This is why, even though the Chicago Bears already had a starting tight end in Cole Kmet, they went out and drafted Colston Loveland. It's because they want to live in this 12 personnel, and the Denver Broncos also want to live in this 12 personnel to make it harder for the defense to match up against them. In order to do that, you need to have an athletic pass-catching tight end who can play off of the line of scrimmage. You see this guy off the line of scrimmage here. You can move him around to the slot. You can move him back here into the backfield as a fullback. You can do all kinds of different stuff with this tight end. This is the role that Evan Ingram's going to fill. But Ingram is a smaller player in terms of tight end standards, so you can't really ask him to play here at the end of the line, put his hand in the dirt, and be asked to run block because he's just too small to do it. He held up well in the opportunities that he had to do it last year in Jacksonville, but he didn't even meet the 20% threshold that I'm going to show you guys in a second here, the 20% of run blocking snaps played in order to qualify for a PFF grade here. He only played 101 total run blocking snaps. In comparison, Adam Troutman last year played 197 run blocking snaps, and Darnell Washington played a whopping 345 run blocking snaps last year. The Steelers ran the ball, I think it was like 530 times or something crazy like that, and Darnell was out there blocking for a majority of those rushing reps, and he was the fifth best run blocking tight end in the NFL last year per PFF grade, which again, I know is not everybody's cup of tea, but I think it's a good baseline evaluation tool. And Darnell Washington being the fifth best run blocking tight end, that's really, really damn good. You come down here, Adam Troutman had a 56.6 run blocking grade on, again, it was how many snaps? I'm sorry, I was mistaken. He had 291 snaps, Adam Troutman did. So just a few less than Darnell Washington did. My mistake there. But he still only posted a 56.6 grade, which is significantly lower than Washington's grade. And when you remove the 20% run blocking minimum here in order to get a look at Evan Ingram, again, he put up solid numbers as a run blocker, but just wasn't asked to do it very often because, again, you just can't really function in that role as an inline tight end at only 235 pounds or whatever Evan Ingram weighs. So, yeah, that's why I think Darnell Washington could fill a really important role here in this Denver Broncos offense. And if you want an uptick production in your run game, you need to have good blocking at the wide receiver position and at the tight end position. They're hoping that they were able to address the wide receiver position with the blocking with Pat Bryant. He's a guy who blocks really well at that position. I think that Darnell Washington could be the solution to your problems in terms of run blocking from the tight end position. Now, as far as Darnell Washington is concerned here, 6'7", 264 pounds. That's definitely the ideal build to be an inline tight end. He hasn't really contributed a whole lot in the receiving game, but he's mostly been behind Pat Freiermuth there in Pittsburgh. In Denver, even though he would be the second tight end, he'd basically be your starter in line, and Sean Payton would still scheme up looks to get him open. 19 receptions last year for 200 yards and 1 touchdown. This comes after he had 7 receptions for 61 yards and no touchdowns in his rookie season, so he's still kind of looking to break out a little bit as a pass catcher, but in terms of run blocking, he's pretty much proven that he can be a more than competent player in that role. In fact, he could be one of the best run blocking tight ends in the NFL, and that's something the Denver Broncos I really think should take a look at here. Are the Steelers even going to move off from Washington? I don't know. Maybe they're going to want to have 3 good tight ends. But for the Denver Broncos, who are looking to continue to raise the ceiling of this tight end room, which, let's be honest, if you were to remove Evan Ingram from the equation, if he gets hurt again this year, the Broncos go right back to having the worst tight end room in the NFL. You need more depth, and you need more guys who can fill different roles, and that's why I think Darnell Washington would be a perfect fit for the Denver Broncos. Financially, it wouldn't cost a lot because Washington's still under a rookie deal. And as far as draft capital, you probably wouldn't have to give up a whole lot to get him because he's buried so far down the Steelers' depth chart. You could probably end up giving up like a future 6th round pick in order to get him, and I would be more than okay with that because he'd fill a really big role on this offense. Or you could just maybe wait and see if he gets cut, but if I'm George Payton, I would maybe give a call up to Omar Khan, the Steelers GM, and see if maybe he'd take like a future 6th or 7th round pick for Darnell Washington, and the Denver Broncos could come away with a really solid player who would fill a really important role on this team. Alright guys, be sure to leave a like on this video as well as subscribe and ring the bell. And let me know in the comment section below, guys. How do you feel if the Denver Broncos were to make a trade for Darnell Washington? Do you think that he would be able to fill that key run-blocking tight end role for the Broncos? Or do you think that they should stay pat with the guys that they currently have in the room and maybe hope that a guy like Caleb Lohner, their 7th round draft pick out of Utah, develops into that role? Drop those comments down below, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts as always. Be sure to leave a like on this video as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. I would really appreciate it, guys. Those are both free and easy ways to show your support. It helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out, and it helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. And until next time, guys, I'm your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.